Mortal Kombat franchise documentary to be talking to the one and only Paolo Montalban, who played the character Kung Lao in Mortal Kombat Conquest in the next of our Mortal Kombat franchise documentary. So far, we're speaking to an array of talented actors and actresses who have played characters in Mortal Kombat Annihilation, Mortal Kombat the original movie, Mortal Kombat the the web series Mortal Kombat Legacy, and now we're delighted to be speaking to Paolo, who played the role of Kung Lao in Mortal Kombat Conquest. I suppose, Paolo, first of all, how did the opportunity come about for you to get cast as a character Kung Lao in Mortal Kombat? I've been watching an awful lot of back the series of Mortal Kombat Conquest, and definitely it seems to be that you must have an array of martial arts talent to get that role.
I wish that were the case, Jim.
Okay.
I actually went into the project with a limited amount of martial arts experience. However, coming out of it, I had a lot more because I had some great trainers who were basically the on-set stunt guys, as well as some of the guest stunt guys on our show, Christopher Leps, Chris Casamassa, JJ Perry, Mike Chatterad, but they were all kind of like my stand-in mentors during the shooting of the series.
And was it hard to get the gig in the first place? I imagine there was an awful lot going for that. Mortal Kombat is a big sort of franchise all over the world. Was it a tough audition to an audition role? Was there numerous auditions to get cast in that role?
It was, Jim. It was. There were actually a lot of one-on-one auditions with the producer, Lawrence Kasanoff, where he actually brought in a professional movie camera to one of the local studios in New York, and he essentially was kind of testing me before the actual test. I mean, I didn't know what a test was until much later on. But I guess maybe he did that with a bunch of the other actors as well. So I think I had maybe 5 auditions with him before I went to the actual test in Los Angeles, where I got to read and act with Daniel Bernhardt and Kristana Loken, who ended up playing Ciro and Taja on the series. They also had a kind of a training session on camera at the Wild Card Gym, where Manny Pacquiao trains, actually, in Hollywood. So I had one of their stunt coordinators take me through the paces of some action sequences, and I guess I passed because I got to play the part, thankfully. I'm so grateful.
And I suppose, Paolo, in terms of Mortal Kombat Conquest, in terms of the script, what struck me was how much they stayed to the original Mortal Kombat lines in terms of the characters, and they were so precise in terms of the history of Mortal Kombat within that sort of series in terms of what was done before. And when you were researching into the role of Kung Lao, did you know much about Mortal Kombat, or did you know much about Kung Lao before you sort of went for the audition?
Well, I'll give you a little secret, Jim. When I was in college, between classes, I would go to the student center and play Mortal Kombat.
Okay.
The stand-up, upright arcade, just plunk in the quarters and spend my free time playing that. And my favorite characters were Sub-Zero, Scorpion, Raiden. Kung Lao wasn't out yet because he didn't come out until Mortal Kombat 2, if you remember that.
Yeah.
But I knew all the fatalities, some of the babalities, all the special moves. The only thing is, at the time, there actually wasn't a lot of canon yet established with Mortal Kombat because the franchise was still fairly new. It wasn't until the subsequent video games that we actually get to see the endings of a lot of these characters and know what actually happened to them and their past history. And it wasn't actually until after we shot the series that I realized how true they were going to be staying to the canon of the great Kung Lao, which was, I guess, the ancestor of the present day Kung Lao.
Yeah, I suppose that what struck me as the ancestor of the President Kung Lao, and what people wouldn't realize is the hat that we all see famous with sort of Kung
Yes.
Lao. That's not with the ancestor as well. So people looking at Mortal Kombat to be looking, where's Paolo throwing the hat, taking out people's heads. Sadly, that's I see you would have loved to have that sort of hat with you.
Yeah, you know, I would have. I would have also loved to have had a finishing move and maybe a babality. And that would have been a lot of fun with the special effects. However, we did have the hat and the costume for the pilot episode. I don't know if you remember that.
Okay.
The pilot episode, I am actually wearing I guess the present day Kung Lao outfit.
And Paolo, you were mentioning there, I was just saying about the fight scenes
Yes.
in terms of Mortal Kombat and Mortal Kombat Conquest. How long did it take to shoot or choreograph one of those fight scenes? Because I imagine it must have been like a week's production in some of those. So each episode, how long did they run for? Was it 12, 14 days shooting an episode?
7 days. We shot every episode 7 days, and that includes the second unit action sequences. So many times we would be shooting the scenes, the dialogue scenes, and then on our breaks, they would rush us out to the second unit where they would have the action sequences set up for us. They would teach us the choreography on the spot that they had already rehearsed with all the stunt people. And then we just do our inserts and like hope for the best, essentially. But sometimes we would actually have we would shoot some of the action sequences on first camera, which was a real treat because, I mean, those were usually grand epic sequences with a lot of people involved, a lot of fighters involved.
Yeah, and I suppose, Paolo, in terms of your main characters beside you, there was Zero, played by Daniel Neinhardt, and Tasha, played by Christine Luckrans. And I suppose those two characters, if people were looking for them in Mortal Kombat in terms of video games and stuff like that, they wouldn't be sort of familiarize them. But we are saying this is the great sort of Kung Lao. So it's important that they get characters around that sort of time, strong sort of characters and developing that. And I suppose people sort of warm to a Zero and a Tasha. And I suppose people are saying in terms of these sort of extras that come out in Mortal Kombat games and looking for characters, and there's definitely a sort of gross towards those sort of characters, and really made this sort of series that more realistic, because obviously you don't have a Johnny Cage, you don't have a Sonya Blade, none of these characters, or Jackson Briggs, none of these characters were born when this Mortal Kombat takes place.
I think that's a really great point, Jim, because I really believe that Zero and Taja they were basically the window for the audience to get into this supernatural world. I mean, these are two normal people who meet this monk, Kung Lao, and then they kind of get thrown into these extraordinary situations with these crazy, literally outer world, characters trying to kill them. So I think those two characters, played brilliantly by Daniel Bernhardt and Kristanna Loken, were specifically put there so that the audience could have a lens into the world and see themselves in our world.
And Paolo, in terms of the shooting location, where did you shoot in terms of Mortal Kombat Conquest? Because I imagine the sort of set there, you probably had one or two different alternates sort of sets. Was there many outdoor shooting locations as well? Just give us a lowdown on that.
Yeah, you bet. So we were lucky enough to shoot at what at the time was called MGM Disney.
Okay.
And so MGM Disney was basically their version of Universal Studios. And we were actually part of a ride. We were actually part of like the tour that went through MGM Disney. So we would actually have people crossing across a catwalk, a windowed catwalk.
Yeah.
And where they were able to see us shooting down below. And we basically had, I want to say, we had two or three main sound stages that we were using. A huge one, which was the Juzin, which was the town or the village of Juzin, and the trading post where Kung Lao and Zero and Taja all resided, as well as where Shao, and then the other one was where Shao Kahn's headquarters were basically, and also the mines where Bruce Locke, as Shang Tsung was trying to escape always, from those mines.
And
So we
yep.
shot there for the interiors, and we shot in the marshes of Orlando for the exteriors, basically the back lot of MGM Disney.
Can you talk to me basically about the sort of fight scenes and choreography in terms of the special powers? Because you're fighting demons and alien creatures that can, like the reptile that can spit things out of his mouth, in terms of the Sub-Zero that can throw ice off his sort of hands. So when you're sort of doing those sort of fight scenes and choreography, are you told by the producer, right, Paolo, just hold your hands, just hold up, and this sort of thing, so we can fit in that sort of special effects with the person putting the ice out through their hands, or shooting get over here sort of scorpion sort of things? How is that sort of intriguing? Because you mentioned that you had limited enough sort of martial arts sort of background, so trying to hold for those sorts of special effects. And I suppose you didn't, obviously you were there, you probably didn't have a clue what it looked like until you saw it back.
Well, I had a little bit of a clue because I played the video games, you forget.
Okay.
So I knew all of their moves, probably more than my castmates did. But yes, we did use green screen technology on our shoots. So you basically acting against a green screen, or sometimes looking at the green screen and pretending that people are teleporting in and spitting acid in your face, or disappearing before your eyes. But what was actually incredible, and what a lot of people don't realize, is that to my memory, I don't believe we used wire work. And I think a lot of people think we did, which is a testament to our stunt guys. A lot of it was air ram and ratchet work. Air ram is kind of like when they launch you in the air. So they're actually doing these acrobatics in the air because they were artificially launched into the air, and then they would land. Amazing stunts. So a lot of the actual action sequences were real to us, and sometimes we would get tagged. Sometimes we get hit in the face with an errant foot or fist or something like that. But it was all good. It was all for the series.
And I suppose, Paolo, one thing that struck me in terms of Mortal Kombat Conquest, and something that has been labeled sometimes when they try and turn computer games into movies, I'm taking Street Fighter, for example, when they tried to turn it into movie, people said it was a bit camp in terms of what was done. In terms of your product, Mortal Kombat Legacy, you were very sort of real with the sort of terms that good guys do die. Characters do feel the sort of pain, the sort of love lost, friendships that you develop. These people do die and get taken out. So it's not a case of always the bad guys dying in Mortal Kombat Conquest, the series. An awful lot of good characters met their demise as well.
Yeah, actually, all the good characters met their demise at the end. I don't want to be a spoiler alert, but we all kind of died at the end there. So that was pretty realistic, where the bad guys actually won at the end of the day. But yes, I thank you for pointing that out and reminding me how great the writing was, as far as that, about how they didn't just tackle with issues of the bad guys wanting to kill Kung Lao or take over the Earth realm. I really love the fact that they grappled with the fact that Kung Lao would outlive his friends and all his loved ones until the next Mortal Kombat tournament, which is every generation, essentially. And how that affects a person as they go through their life, knowing that the people that they're getting close to you'll see them pass before your eyes, and you just kind of have to deal with that.
I suppose Kung Lao, the character himself, was unlucky in terms of love, anyway, in terms of Mortal Kombat Conquest. Everyone he sort of went near in terms of that, obviously, it was a bad result for them in the end.
His first girlfriend dies. He ends up sharing a bed with Melina.
Who's a monster.
Who's a monster. She's a monster. In the video games, her finishing move is that she eats your head, basically. Yeah. That's her finishing move. So definitely unlucky in love there. But I guess romance is usually in the backseat when you're a Mortal Kombat champion and defender of the Earth realm. I guess you can't be thinking about those things too much.
Imagine, I suppose, some of the scenes now in terms of one struck me in terms of the Bruce Lock, in terms of taking souls from people. When you're lying on the ground there and you just see a guy with sort of his hands sort of moving and you have to show your body's trembling or your soul sort of being taken. In terms of that sort of acting and sort of choreography, do you get a sort of kick out of those sort of near-death moments?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, this is like that superhero moment. I mean, this is that moment where we want to make believe that we're the superhero in the comic or the movie, and you're actually you're getting to do it in real time, and then they add these effects to it, so it makes you actually look like it's happening to you.
Yeah, and I suppose, Paolo, you did so many episodes in series one. In terms of, I think it's up near 20 episodes you did in series one. In terms
Yes.
of that, going forward, did you think you did so much in season one that there wasn't much left to cover for a potential sort of future seasons?
No, actually, the irony of it all is that we were under the impression that we were going to have a second season and
Okay.
subsequent seasons. We were doing really well. We were
Yeah.
the #1 new syndicated series that year. But there were a lot of there was a lot of talk that maybe our show was too violent, for younger people. But now that I've done my research years later, it turns out it was just a money thing. It was just too expensive to produce. It was a really expensive show to produce, and so I
I
guess they just
suppose,
had the money
Paolo,
for it.
in terms of the timing for when you came out, I suppose when you look at all those sort of media platforms now, in terms of Netflix and all that, I imagine if this dropped on Netflix there for the first time, it would have ran and ran and ran. So, in
Oh,
terms of, did you sort of, in terms of the timing for Mortal Kombat Conquest, in terms of what we have now in terms of TV series, was it just a case of unfortunate timing? Because I imagine on a streaming platform like Netflix or Amazon Prime, you could have got maybe 4 or 5 seasons. We see what so many are doing at the moment.
right. But then I would have had to have waited that long for this to come out. No, I'm glad we did it back then, because there was really, at the time, there was really nothing like it on TV as far as, a live action TV series based off of a video game that was doing really well, and that was pulling in viewers that weren't just fans of the series, but were also, I'm sorry, not the video game
Yeah.
series, but also just tuning in and getting caught up with our characters and our stories. So
And
I'm really grateful, that
And
it happened
Paolo,
back then.
you probably set the bar for another series that was came afterwards in terms of Mortal Kombat Legacy, and that really, it didn't delve into Mortal Kombat or Mortal Kombat Annihilation. It really delved into what ye did and took on a step from that. I mean, some of the storylines, I had the storyline of Scorpion and Sub-Zero in Mortal Kombat Legacy. You could probably trace it back to your show from where it got an awful lot of influence. So definitely in terms of year-lasting impact on the Mortal Kombat sort of franchise, other productions like Mortal Kombat Legacy went more down looking at your route, because you set the platform in terms of what ye did in terms of the deaths and the graphic and the terms of special effects. And you might have said it might have been a bit advanced for the time, but Mortal Kombat Legacy then followed on from what ye did as well.
Yeah, I think what they did was really incredible with that in the series that they rolled out. In many ways, I wished that they had brought some of the Mortal Kombat Conquest characters in, for cameo appearances or maybe flashbacks or something like that, just to see what it would look like
Yeah.
having our characters with the upgraded technology, and in that kind of the way that they shot it was really beautiful. It was, it was very dark and really shadowy. I mean, so was ours, but this was like another level of darkness.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose, Paolo, we have Mortal Kombat, the new movie coming out in January 2021. I suppose there's great excitement for it. It's supposed to be, it's been a long time, 1997 since the last Mortal Kombat movie. The
Wow.
first one was out in 1995. So over 20 years now since the last one. So there's great anticipation on the back of the huge success of Mortal Kombat X, the game on Xbox and PlayStation, which is really really graphic, I suppose, and the Mortal Kombat comic books that are selling by the millions. So this is a franchise that ain't dying. In fact, it's getting stronger and living. It's almost like a James Bond sort of effect. It's just
I hope
rolling,
so.
rolling and rolling along, and there's a real appetite. I've never seen so much an appetite for a video game movie in a long, long time.
Right. I know. I think it's fantastic that that the Mortal Kombat franchise has grown in the sense that it has like these millions and millions of fans, you know, of the video game, and now they'll actually get to see it in a live action movie theater with the special effects that the same special effects or even better special effects that they have in the video games, and in a movie that really doesn't pull any punches as far as the violence or the graphic content.
And I suppose one thing that struck me in terms of what you see is an awful lot of a new generation of fans that weren't born in terms of when the first Mortal Kombat movies came out, or even when your series Mortal Kombat Conquest came out. But now they know the characters and they're researching back and they're watching year series from 10 to 7 years on warming to you. So you've got a new audience. I was just checking there on Daily Motion that they a video sharing platform. They have all your episodes up, and some of your episodes there have like maybe 7,000-8,000 views in terms of on a monthly basis, not alone after that.
Fantastic.
Like so.
Oh, you know, I would love it if a platform like Netflix or Amazon or Hulu would pick it up. Right now, I think you can only purchase the full episodes on Amazon Prime. But I mean, wouldn't it be great if it could just be part of your membership on Netflix or something like that? So if you want to see it, maybe throw Netflix a little hint.
And Paolo, in terms of Mortal Kombat 2021, I don't know if you've seen some of the trailers, but they seem to have gone back to the episodes of fighting in train stations, fighting in an awful lot of what she did in terms of fighting in day-to-day life outside shops and outside temples, outside churches. It's not like the Mortal Kombat Annihilation. It was all done in a sort of an outworld experience, and then Mortal Kombat, the first one was done in this island, but this is happening within the common day grounds, the common day streets, people going through glass windows and stuff like that. So
I think it's fantastic. I think it's great. I think it's going to add another level of realism to the movie that you know, because like when you look at you know, Outworld, or you look at where we shot Mortal Kombat Conquest, in many ways it's still kind of like fairy tale land or make-believe or fantasy land, right? But I mean, you have people fighting on subway platforms, going through glass windows in, you know, stores in the mall. I think that's a perfect way to get
make
people
21st century version.
Yeah, exactly. Very 21st century. Very 21st century.
And I suppose, Paolo, in terms of Mortal Kombat now, in terms of the movie itself, I suppose we're going to see an awful lot. It's going to be very much in the Chinese, Japanese sort of heritage and sort of history. An awful lot of the cast have been cast so far, real prominent sort of in that sort of background. I suppose in terms of Kung Lao now, he's sort of the great sort of Kung Lao. If a cameo role came about for sort of Kung Lao having flashbacks to his great ancestor or something, would that, if the producers or directors rang you up as something, is that something you'd jump at a heartbeat, even though you might have to dye the hair you'd have to dye the hair a bit gray or something?
Yeah, I believe the great Kung Lao that they've been putting in a lot of the video games, he has a shaved head, right? I mean, is this because he was like they really make him a monk?
Yeah, a wig, I suppose, one of those sort of.
I don't know, but yeah, definitely, I'd be thrilled to be a part of the Mortal Kombat family once again.
Yeah, and I suppose, Paolo, lastly, before I let you go, in terms of Mortal Kombat Conquest, you've done an awful lot of shows in your life. In terms of, have you ever done anything like that in terms of, you know, make believe, that sort of playing that fantasy, sci-fi character, this sort of good, this sort of, everyone wants to play this make-believe sort of superhero sort of role. Was that the only time in your career that you played that superhero type of role? Have you ever done anything like Mortal Kombat in your career, or so does it have a fond spot or a touching sort of spot for you still even to this day?
Yeah, absolutely. So no, the the long and the short of the answer is no. I've never done anything like Mortal Kombat. I've played the prince in Cinderella, you know, in
No
a Disney
violence in
movie.
that.
So I'm a Disney prince, I guess. Somebody told me that the other day. So I've done that, and I've also played a soldier in a World War II movie, a big
Okay.
budget World War II movie in Australia, where we had to do a boot camp for 12 days, and so I've covered that base, but I've never done anything like Mortal Kombat as far as being the lead superhero role, where everyone's trying to take down, and he just keeps coming back for more. So definitely has a warm spot in my heart.
And I suppose, Paolo, lastly, one more question. In terms of Mortal Kombat, some characters associated, and in terms of the Lumina, if you're associated with a franchise, it's like James Bond. I go back to James Bond. If you're
Sure.
Sean Connery, you're part of that franchise even after 30, 40 years, sort of thing, that you remember. You're probably associated with the Mortal Kombat franchise now, even probably 10 years on, or in terms of Kung Lao. I mean, in terms of that, are you sort of, I know Robin Shaw is cast as Liu Kang, and everyone sees Robin Shaw and they're probably say, that's Liu Kang, and even to this day, he's probably, whatever he's done in his career, he's Liu Kang, sort of
Right.
stuff to this day. Are you sort of delighted to be tagged with that sort of Kung Lao sort of bracket, and even going forward in the next 10 or 12 years, if people stop you in the street and say, yeah, hey, were you Kung Lao in Mortal Kombat? You say, yes, I was, and someone asked you an autograph or something like that. Are you still happy to be associated
Absolutely.
with that, or is it something that can become a bit of a burden after time?
No, not at all. Not at all. I carry it as a badge of honor to have played Kung Lao and to have been part of the Mortal Kombat franchise. You know, the funny thing is, a lot of the people who watched the series were in about maybe their early teens or their mid-teens, you know, back in 1998. So they're full-grown adults now. They're full-grown adults, and
It'd
so
be
when
the
I have these
dad
full-grown
asking you for the autograph rather than the kid.
exactly, and I think it's fantastic. I think it's just great.
Sending the boy up asking when there's really for the father.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think it's like meeting an old friend that you've never met before, but because they know your work so intimately, like you've literally been in their home for 22 episodes. And when they were growing up, they feel a kinsmanship to you, and I'm so delighted to be a part of that and to still have that, you know, in my life and in the future, hopefully.
And I suppose, Paolo Montalban, are you going to give us a thumbs up in terms of if an opportunity came about for a cameo role, in case the producer sees this sort of documentary later on?
Absolutely, absolutely. So from my lips to yours, hire me as the great Kung Lao. I'll shave my head. It'll be fine. I think I have a pretty good head in here. We'll see.
Paolo Montalban, a pleasure talking to you today to relive your memories in this current episode of Mortal Kombat Franchise, the documentary. I think you're roughly in the double digits in terms of characters now that we've sort of associated, and no doubt a huge success to your time in Mortal Kombat Conquest, and no doubt hopefully there'll be many more opportunities to relive Mortal Kombat in your future as well. For me, Paolo Montalban, a pleasure talking to you this evening. Take care, and in this current climate, stay safe.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Bye.
Thank you.